Welcome
Hello.
to the Bulluminati podcast. We're live, Vito.
It's been a while. And you know what? The last time Seth and Vito were live together by themselves was Elena Chaneke's very first game. Why do I remember that? Because we had a heck of a time trying to remember how to pronounce her name, but
I
I'll
think
never
we were
forget ever since that
close.
episode.
I think we were close. I think
Yes.
our final. I think we came down on a Siniki, which is not as far off as it could have been. So
it was one of those incredible moments that probably happened pre-pandemic. So here we go.
yeah. So all right. We've got one special guest in. It looks like. Do we want to put him live? I don't know if he's ready for live radio.
Yeah.
Live
We'll wait to make sure that he's good, and we'll talk a little bit about what's been happening since we've been gone.
Yeah. So on our side, we did the interview with Coach Golish. That was the last time I think we did a podcast, right? The last thing we released.
Yeah, so that was the last one, and I actually wanted to chat with you because how was that experience? Because editing it, he seemed like a really genuine, interesting guy who's really sharp and really chat with you guys. So how was that from your perspective?
Yeah, no, like going into it, I thought he would be pretty good, just kind of seeing how he did in other interviews, and he's allows himself to have some fun. It seems like in interviews, so I knew we had some questions we could ask and off that, but we didn't want to do. I know I'm kind of speaking for Nathan here, but we kind of talked. We didn't really want to do like the same thing that everybody else had done thus far. A lot of what kind of gum are you chewing? Are you going to Portillo's? That kind of stuff from like the early press conferences. We want to try to do some more stuff. And I could have talked with him for an hour just about asking him different questions about football and how they set up their practice and things like that. So I got a few of those football nerd questions answered. A couple of them sidestepped, but he was really, really good to talk to. I really enjoyed it. And he gave us some extra time. We just can't be mean on Twitter. So
that was great, and I'm surprised that so we have that on audio, and so 4 years. It's a long time, but I thought that was hilarious. I mean, just that moment, or even some of the stuff like, "Hey, I'm not going to give away trade secrets."
I was
like,
really,
okay, yeah.
Listen, Coach. I'm watching. Just to let you know, we see the ball boys on the sideline. We're picking it up. But it was really cool. He was. I thought he was pretty open. We didn't get. I thought the most interesting thing, kind of, because we're going to talk recruiting here in a second, or maybe sometime in this podcast. We got one of our distinguished guests waiting in the wings, so we won't make him wait too long. But when he was talking about recruiting, he talked about sending all his assistant coaches to a kind of scout school. I thought that was really an interesting tidbit in determining kind of how they look at players. So I'm assuming they've got traits or things they think fit in their systems, and this is what they want guys looking for, and these are the kind of guys they want to bring in the program. So they kind of went and taught each coach, hey, this is what we're looking for when you're watching film. These are the traits we want. So I thought that was a really interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people really picked up on. So he was good. I thought he gave us some really good answers and was thoughtful and didn't coach speak us too much. So it was fun.
Yeah, that I'm hoping that that can continue. I know when all the new coaches come on, they have to kind of do the whole media row thing, and you go talk to everybody, and some's more rah than others. But that was neat to be like, okay, because he's done a bunch before you guys lined this one up. So it was nice that he was still just kind of fun and lighthearted, and that was neat, given the extra time too, and that it seemed like he enjoyed it. So that was great, because mostly every time that Nate or Collin or anyone else has gotten a coach on, it was during media days. So this is really neat to have it pretty much in, it's off season, but still busy time to be able to get that interview.
Yeah, it was awesome. And he, giving us the extra time was really cool, and we heard that he had a good time. So that was nice, kind of seeing that he enjoyed it. And maybe that's why he gave us a few extra minutes, because it wasn't too boilerplate, but yeah, it was good. We appreciate him giving us some time, and then it took a while to get it together, but we're glad we were able to get it done, because we thought we had a chance. The new guy wanted to get the message out there, so I'm glad we were able to get him on, because I thought he was really, really good.
I will say my favorite thing that you said was, I got one last question. It's a silly one. He said, I'll give you 5 more minutes. Like, oh, I'm going to save that for the end then. Here's some more fun stuff.
Yeah, I didn't want to get him to extend time, then go into a Tony Perkis question on conditioning. But as all good coaches do, he turned it into a bit of a sales pitch. So that was smart. And then he did answer the Tony Perkis question at the end. So that was fun.
Yeah,
it was nice to see him kind of play around a little bit. So he wasn't stern with us.
It's always good when people hear "Welcome to the Bulluminati" podcast and don't laugh right away. That has happened in the past. A bit of a humble brag. That was actually the way the timing worked out was perfect. That was my 1,000th podcast ever edited. So 1,000 is a big freaking number. So I will thank.
That's a lot of podcasts.
It's a lot of audio. So I will thank Collin Sherwin for bringing me on back in 2017, and yeah. That was one, and Golish was 1,000, so it was only fitting. So that was a lot of fun.
There you go. Started with Collin, ended with Golish. What a come up for you! Now, Collin brought you on. Now, are we ready to bring him on?
I think so, and I think that was a heck of a transition.
Look at that transition. I'm working. That's why we get the big guests here.
Here he is.
Smooth as silk, boys. How the heck are you?
We're good. Fantastic. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, my friend.
Are you in a different location?
I am current. So I signed a contract for a house about 4 days ago, and so
holy crap!
I'm going to be homeless for another 2-3 weeks. So I am currently at the home of failed city council candidate Hoyt Prindle. Who took me in. He didn't have anything else to do since he's not on city council because he lost by 135 votes. So I am here. So I am here until my place closes, which will either be sometime the 3rd week in June, or it will be in mid-July because I won't be here after that. So in the interim, I am just sort of going through. But yeah, I'm moving to Channelside. I'm gonna leave my beloved South Tampa, but be only a small bike ride away. So, but I will be walking distance to Lightning games, and that was a key factor in my decision. So,
I'm assuming that the house comes with season tickets that you have.
Yes, exactly. Or I'm just going to call everybody I know who works for the Lightning and just annoy them way more than I already do in looking for freebies and whatever else because I bought a condo and I'm poor.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. That is breaking news here on the Bulluminati podcast. Here, I got this going here now. Got a condo. This is pretty cool. We got to have a house party or at least do a recording over there. Just hang out and watch some sports. But
so wait till you see the play. Like I'm going to get it all straightened away before I invite anybody over. But also we're going to be walking distance to the NCAA volleyball Final Four this year. And also that preseason tournament that they're doing the last weekend in August. And I've already been in touch with some friends around that program about how we could possibly pregame and postgame enjoy the celebrations. I believe Michelle Collier, best player in USF history, will be down with her Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets as well for that tournament. So should be good.
Heck yeah.
Let's go.
So Collin, we wanted to bring you on as a distinguished guest here to talk about the big news from last week. We wanted to try to get on it and kind of put something out as soon as it happened, but we wanted to get some expert opinions. So we've got you on here. We have another special guest lined up for hopefully later.
I was really hoping that special guest would be here because I think between the two of us, I think we probably have this whole thing covered, but hopefully he can slide in here at some point. But yeah.
Yeah, we were hoping to get him, and we'll get him on hopefully in a little bit here, hitting kind of the academic side, what is involved in joining. And of course, if you don't know, USF was extended an invitation to join the AAU, and it's not, the one that runs terrible basketball tournaments and baseball tournaments.
Man, what? I was so hoping to see Real Law in like a sweatsuit, like a velour sweatsuit, like running around and like, dropping bags of cash on 14-year-old kids. Like, come on. That's not what this is?
Playing on the sideways courts that are going to cross the normal court. Yeah.
It's
not that as much as we want it to be. That's not what it is.
Look at that sweet logo right next to Carnegie Mellon, under Notre Dame, and above Arizona State. But sure, the real Space U. Anyway.
Yes, this AAU is the Association of American Universities, also known as, prerequisite for the Big Ten up until recently, and maybe into the future. We'll see. But a very prestigious academic association here. On your end, Collin, we want to talk to you kind of first as an alum. How do you feel? Your degrees maybe worth a little bit more here, or how do you feel kind of as an alum and someone that's been around the school, seeing it kind of move in this direction? I know this is something I've heard you talk about and the guys at the site talk about. They thought was possible in the near future, and it's happened. So kind of how do you feel as an alum and someone that's been around for a long time here?
So I got not emotional, but like there were two things last week that really just sort of like, oh, wow, like, holy crap, that just happened. One, that, and then Rose Zhang winning her first ever pro golf tournament, which was the sickest thing I've ever seen. Like, she won the NCAA championship, and then 2 weeks later, she wins the most valuable event in the LPGA. I was really surprised at how I reacted, because I was like, oh my God, they actually did it. Because I've been hearing about this literally since I think the first time I ever heard it mentioned, I was Mike Griffin's campaign manager when he ran for student body president almost 20 years ago. And I did that twice. Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the first time, more than 20 years ago now. And I think that was the first time that I had heard somebody actually float the idea of joining the AAU. It always seemed to me like, yes, we are reaching for this. And I think for years, the school has clearly been qualified in terms of research dollars, in terms of patents, in terms of community impact, in terms of like all the standards were there. But this is a private club. And just because you meet the standards doesn't mean they are necessarily going to accept you. It's such a new school, and there are so many things that are different about USF than a lot of institutions. I think we certainly had the cachet, but we didn't have the cachet, but we did have all of the parts in place, all of the requirements that, to compete with these universities. So to see it actually get over the line and get done, look, I mean, it is no secret. I have been very not happy with some of the things USF has done over the last 20 years. You might have read about it on sites like thedailystampede.com, or my Twitter account, or talk to me anywhere, or like whatever. I mean, I certainly think that USF has failed to walk and chew gum a lot at the same time. But this was always the sole focus. This was the number one thing. This was, if you could put any top level administrator of the last 20 years, say, you're king for a day, you get one wish. What is it? It would be to make USF an AAU school. And they did it. So criticisms aside, it is an incredible moment for the school. They're not making any more Ivy League schools, and there's no such thing as a public Ivy. That's something that Michigan grads made up to make themselves feel better. There is, but outside of that, this is the top tier of schools that you could possibly be a part of, public or private. These are the schools that make a difference in terms of higher education. They are the ones who set policy. They are the ones that change the world. And so for USF to get into that tier and to that level, you got to give Judy Kendrick a lot of credit here. Like, I mean, she wasn't the one who got them over the line, but a lot of this will be a part of her legacy, even though she's been gone for a couple of years. You got to give some credit to Ralph Wilcox, who's not there anymore either. Like, they held the academic line on a lot of things. They continue to invest. While I think they could have done some other things in addition to this differently, this was the goal and they got there. And that's a massive, massive accomplishment. And now, like, your degree is worth more today than it was a week ago. 100%.
As someone who works at the university too, there was a big old party that happened on Friday. This came out of nowhere too. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm an insider of any sense just based on where I work. on that side of campus, but it's one of those things where I thought we were years down the road. I thought this was still a slow play that was still on the road to happening, and to have this major announcement, just pretty much hearing, hey, there's gonna be big news at noon, and it's like, okay, what's this gonna be? And then that came out of nowhere. I didn't hear anybody else kind of floated that, hey, this is a possibility. And I don't. Pretty much over the past 5 years, they have done so much in the academic space than the previous 2025, but it all had to lay the groundwork. And you start seeing that all the pieces started settling in. And now you can add that to, the rising U.S. News and World Report rankings and all the research dollars coming in, what the, Morsani and Moffat's doing. It's just like, USF's turning into a big university in this space and in the city.
Baby's all grown up. I'm I still can't believe it. And I had heard about this for so long. And by the way, like you, Vito, we talk to a lot of people at the university every day. I had no clue. I didn't know it was this close. I didn't know they were on the precipice. I don't know how this process even played out. I haven't even really talked to anybody about well, when did you know, or, was there any sort of last minute wrangling or anything that happened here? I think what's really interesting too is that Arizona State is another one of these schools. Arizona State, I think, is the second or third largest university in the country in terms of student population. If you work at Starbucks, any Starbucks in the country, and you have, I believe you for at least a half-time, or if you work a certain number of hours a week, you can get an undergraduate degree for free from Arizona State. And it is certainly known as a school that has a, what's fair to say, party reputation. Possibly one of the great party schools in the history of the world. And the fact that they took them, I think is a testament to the changing dynamics of higher education, that large public institutions in major media markets in major metropolitan areas, that's the future of higher education in this country. And that's certainly what USF is. So I thought the inclusion of two schools in that sort of same, realm, I think USF's probably a little bit further along. Academically, I think Arizona State certainly has a little bit more history and tradition and probably has some better community ties, but to their area, although they are certainly a global enterprise at this point as well. And I think that's where USF's got to go. So this is just, I can't, to me, the two biggest days in the history of the institution, at least since I've been there, were the day of the Big East announcement and the AAU. Well, you can technically get kicked out of the AAU. Ask Nebraska. Because it does happen.
Whoops.
But it doesn't happen very often. And so I think this is something that will be permanent and definitely fits with the university's mission. Much more so. But I see that list of schools and I go, oh my God, really? First of all, I'd never get in now. I don't know about you guys. I could never get into USF now. There's no way.
Yeah.
And
That's tough.
To see us on that list is man, you know what? They screwed up a lot of stuff. They screwed up the Big East. They screwed up football. They didn't invest. They, failed a lot of things 7 ways from Sunday, but man, they got the big one right, and you can't take it away. It's really amazing accomplishment.
Yeah. First John Rahm wins the Masters, and now they get the Arizona State's having a year.
Yeah, pretty good. They fire Herm. If you still have Herm, do you get in the AAU? Can
that was the last
school with Herm?
That was the last push. Get rid of Herm.
You're in. That was the last.
What's interesting is going back and looking at, kind of how often membership is grown there. It's not like every year they're adding somebody. It comes in
first time in a long time.
Yeah, drips and drabs. It's not. It looks like they added one school in 21, a couple in 19, and then before that it was 2010, and it's one or two. I was surprised that there's a few different ones that came in at the same time, and a lot of them kind of on the football teams that are kind of not just academic. You got Notre Dame, Miami, Arizona State, I mentioned USF, signed kind of some, D1 football, and that might kind of have something to do with Rutgers has been in for a minute, I think, right?
Yeah. So I had more than one person, because I sent out a tweet about, hey, Big Ten, if you like warm weather like USC and UCLA, we got a couple of places that are closer now that are AAU eligible, that are AAU and eligible, and very much looking for a new conference home. And while I don't think that's something that I don't think we'll see that announcement anytime in the near or immediate future. This is just something else that opens up another level of of access. Because remember, conference alignment decisions don't get made by athletic directors; they get made by presidents, chancellors, boards of trustee, things like that. And I think that it just, in terms of athletics, I think this is maybe not as impactful to athletics as it is to the university as a whole. But I think it shows that, like, if you're a student that's thinking about, oh, USF, are they any good at anything academically? They go, yeah, these are our peer schools now.
Does it give athletics any ammo to say, ease off the stadium, nerds? You've got this one.
No, that's not going to happen. Look, the tension between the United Faculty of Florida and the universities that they serve is always going to be there, because this, despite what the three of us in this room and most of the people listening may think, USF is actually supposed to primarily be an academic institution. Unfortunately, I wish that wasn't the case. I wish we could just, put all the money in baseball and tennis and golf and volleyball and all of, these sports that I really care about. But unfortunately, that doesn't really fit like the whole mission thing deal. So I don't think, yeah, I know, right? But I don't think the stadium reluctance of the faculty will change. And I think that's probably fair, considering that they're 10 years under threat right now by the state.
So it's not going to be a one for you, one for me situation here.
No, there's some, basically there's some language in some bills that passed in the last legislature that really limits some of the things that can be explored academically statewide. They might get thrown out in court. Some of them have already been thrown out in court previously. These might as well. But it's not a great time to be like a tenure track professor at any institution in Florida, not just USF. In fact, if any of them, I think USF would probably be the number one you'd want to go to. It's not like Ben Sass got the presidency of the University of Florida because he's such a proponent of academic freedom. So if you're going to go anywhere as a professor in the state of Florida, you'd probably want to come here over any state school.
How do you think this? You kind of touched on it briefly. It seems like for the longest time, the thought with realignment and maybe moving to a Power 5 conference has always been kind of ACC centric, right? A bunch of people have heard from a bunch of different people. It's not just kind of one person putting it out. It seems to be a lot of guys have heard from a lot of different people that ACC is a possibility in the future. Obviously, things need to happen, right? It's very contingent on, I'm sure, on some on the field performance would probably be helpful. And then the stadium, I'm sure, is helpful. But now, as you mentioned, the Big Ten is kind of notorious for looking at schools with AAU. Does this open them up as a small, albeit a very small possibility, or do you think that's kind of Miami kind of getting in? Is it basically going to be, if you do have a chance, it's going to be you're racing against Miami's grant of rights coming up in the ACC, and maybe you take their spot in the ACC? Is that, or do you think those two are distinctly linked, Miami and USF?
I look on this, grain of sand of a chance. Yeah, I would say we probably more linked to Miami than not. But remember, Miami is one of those 7 schools in the ACC that's trying to wriggle out now because of revenue reasons. It seems to be by Florida State, and Clemson seem to be leading the revolt there.
I thought Miami would be a Big Ten fit if they were AAU.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, so. No, they certainly are. I mean, I think a lot of it is the the oceanic research that they do there. I believe that is like the big. They have a huge medical complex as well, of course, but like I think a lot of it is, you know, their hard sciences is part of it, is a lot of the reason why they got this. But I mean, if you're trying to carry the Florida market, you know, yeah, I mean, this is something that would be considered. But like, look, if the ACC drops down, you know, if let's say those 7 schools split off and they find a way out of the grant of rights, which I don't think they ever could, but that thing appears to be written in cement.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's up there with the Rays lease in terms of like the great contracts in the history of the world. Maybe like the prenup in the War of the Roses, the Rays 30-year lease, and then like the ACC grant of rights. I think it's like those 3. Yeah. Like I think if it did happen, like, look, I don't think the ACC is going to give 2 hoots either way. You know, Louisville doesn't. You know, Louisville was a glorified junior college basically when they got accepted to the ACC. I don't know how they've improved academically since then, but you know, they'd come for UCF ahead of us right now. You know, more student population, better attendance. You know, it just I think they would. You know, if they had their druthers and they had to pick one, and both are of equal ability to get free. Although I would assume that I don't know the deal, but I would assume UCF signed over a decent amount of their rights and or are locked into some kind of long-term contract now. So yeah,
I know they don't get a full share, and I'd imagine they have a punitive exit fee if they exited early. So that would be
for sure. Like it would be like ridiculous amount. Whereas like USF's, what is it, like it's 12 months or 18 months and like $5 million or something. It's like not bad at all.
So basically, and despite this news, which is awesome, I think we all agree it's great, that it really is going to come down to, are you playing well for an extended period of time on the field, right? This doesn't really change much in terms of,
you know what, I think in terms of conference, I don't think, you know, at this point, I don't think it makes a difference. Now, maybe in 10 and 15 years when USF is in a better position, or maybe even less than that, when USF is a better position on the field, this just opens up more doors.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it does, is it puts you in the room and it opens up more doors. But I don't think it has any immediate effects in terms of conference. What I found most interesting is, you know, I saw that stadium financing plan, and that's probably a different show. But I saw that and I went, oh, they are not messing around here. They're floating only 200 on a 340 stadium. And that's because they took all the money from WUSF and pumped it 100% into the stadium. And there's no student fee increase, which blew my mind, honestly. Like, I just was assuming that there was going to be a student fee increase, and there wasn't one.
That was huge. That they didn't even say we're going to look at it, we're going to do a feasibility study or talk to people. They just like
they did.
I just feel like it was, we already had this signed, sealed, delivered, and everybody was, you know, chatting, wondering where's this coming from. It's like, that we got taken care of, buddies.
Does that also lead you to believe that it's going to be multi use? Like they're going to try to get, that they're going to design it in a way. And this is, I think, when everyone's asking for renderings, you know, I don't think anything's kind of, well, look, perfect timing, but where are the renderings? It seems like, right, they've got to design it, I'd assume, to be a year-round facility to make year-round revenue on it. So that's got to be coming into play here.
So I am. First of all, I just realized that there were comments. Hey guys, how are you? I didn't even know that there were. I just turned those on. Secondly, you have to, any facility that you built like this, like, you can't just have it open 6 or 7 days a year. Like, that's insane. You can't do that anymore. This is $340 million. Like, it's not paying for itself just on that. You're going to need monster truck shows, and you're going to need big concerts, and you're going to need, like, you know, you're going to need to take away some of the special events from Ray J and from the amphitheater. You know, the problem is that our area is already like oversaturated with facilities already. We got, you know, the amphitheater, we got Ray J, we got Amalie, you know, so there's only so many events that you can like bring in. Obviously the Rowdies seem like a perfect fit. like to play there. Green and gold already. Drop them in. They've got a history of playing at USF anyway, way back in the day.
But Owl Lang with the sunset in the background, it's perfect.
It's gorgeous, and it's also like a dump, and it's a visually a beautiful dump, but it's a dump that they're not going to put any more money into. And Stuart Silverman loves free stadiums built by the taxpayers, and that's just seemed to be like what he would have an opportunity to get here. I heard some people talking about a women's NWSL possible franchise that might be a good fit there. But yeah, you got to fill it. I think a secondary tenant, something like that, whatever that secondary tenant is always going to be good. And then they've got to get out and sell it. And that's why having the Vinnick Sports Group representing that facility, which they will, they're going to go out and sell concerts. They're going to go out and pitch. That's their job, is to go get as many events into that facility as they can. For Vinnick, he gets the win because he's already got Emily. Now he gets an outdoor facility that he can control, that can be competitive for concerts, that he can dip into, the Bucks and the Tampa Sports Authority sort of stranglehold on. Like, if you want to see Beyonce or Tay-Tay or whatever, you only basically want one option. Well, this could technically be a secondary option at some point for maybe not those level of shows, but like the next step down.
And it's a good middle road, right? Between the people running the huge stadium and maybe a smaller arena. Right. And then you also get, bowl game, that kind of thing could be moved over there, right? So,
the Gasparilla Bowl, I think would be, and I haven't talked to Scott or anybody over there, but I would think the Gasparilla would be extremely interested in having a facility where they would have a little bit more control and not have to pay for parking spaces and,
be in the middle of the Buck season.
In the middle of the Buck season, not being able to paint the fields and so I haven't talked to anybody over there about that, but that would seem to be something that makes sense. And I know Michael Kelly has great relationships with the folks over there, so we'll see. But I would assume that here's where I was really encouraged. Like, I was around when they redid the Sun Dome, and I saw those pro formas, and I went, wait a minute. So you're telling me you're going to sell however many suites there are in the Sun Dome, like 8, 12, whatever it is. And they're like, we're going to get I forget it was like 30,000 or 50,000. We're going to get like $30,000 or $50,000 per suite, and then they're going to buy the tickets on top of that. Who? Who bought those? Who was going to pay $35,000 to $50,000 a year to get first crack at USF men's and women's basketball and the occasional Fits in the Tantrums concert, or Foster the People? Like, that's the move here. So that pro forma, I think, the people who signed off on it, a lot of them are still here. And I think a lot of those same folks were burned by that, thought the institution didn't really do its due diligence, and they changed here. Big ones. This is going to happen, and this is coming from, this money is real. It's going to happen. I would assume there's a naming rights person that we just don't know lined up already. I think that's got to be it. And by the way, all of us are going to pay too, because we're all going to be buying PSLs, y'all. Start saving your nickels and dimes now. They can tell you to buy season tickets so you can get in on the no. I mean, go buy season tickets. Whatever. But the big thing is that you're going to get hit up for a PSL. If you're not familiar, that's personal seat license, where you basically pay a fee for the right to buy season tickets in the new stadium.
I was gonna say, hey, so if there are people who don't know, it's not pumpkin spice latte, right? Never mind. That was the kick joke. I imagine Bullstock and all of whatever random outside concerts you had, USF Bulls Week, whatever, will go there. I mean, they have the whole planned plaza for food trucks. Maybe you can get solo acts in the square and the piazza kind of area, not maybe in the stadium. That's the other hope, is you hope you have some sort of event planner who's saying, this is what we could do for the students, whether it's, bring in major acts, or you bring in whatever to at least fill it, so people will want to wander from where they're living in the dorms to come over there. And also, what the heck happens to 50th Street? Because now on 50th and Malibu become like prime real estate, because now you're across the street from the stadium, or what happens there?
I was talking to a couple of people. Like I said, I just bought a condo last week, and I was talking to a couple of people, and they're like, "Oh, so you're going to buy it up off 50th off 50th somewhere and just like have yourself walking the football games. I'm like, I can't live in North Tampa again. I can't do that. But if I was, yeah. And like, there's some old fogies that are already trying to find like, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with old school FSU. There's basically these old guys bought a frat house at FSU and they just use it on game days and basically for like a couple other events throughout the year, but they bring their families, they go, it's like several hundred guys. They set up like a 501c3 for this place and you just go, you get a wristband, you tailgate, you pregame, you postgame, everything's done and it's all taken care of for you. And I know there are a couple people who are extremely interested in possibly finding some sort of real estate slice like that by the new USF stadium and then making that sort of like having like old school FSU sort of be a model for what they want to do as well.
That's cool. All right. We've got our second distinguished guest. Probably, I think it's fair to say, Collin, probably our more distinguished guest here.
He definitely has more degrees than I am. And he's definitely like a better, human being. So like, Morrison,
hey, Collin, what's up?
Hey, buddy. I'm going to jump off because I'm going to mute myself because I want to hear what you have to say about AAU. But I talked to I have a Notre Dame grad who is my golf editor who is doing golf stuff for me today. And she works with us. And she was like, AAU, hey, that sounds great. What is that? So why is this not as big a deal to the Notre Dame folk as it has been to every USF person who is like sending out memes of like, Leonardo DiCaprio with his, pinky finger up in the air. Ooh, la, la,
All right, so I think it's about institutional goals and the projection of where you want to go. So with Notre Dame, for a long time, their mission was undergraduate, almost purely focused on undergraduate education. People were asking, well, why aren't many Big East schools in the AAU? They're mostly private schools. They don't really have much in terms of research funds that come from the National Science Foundation or from the National Institute of Health. They focus very much on the undergraduate educational goal. And the AAU has a lot to do, not just with your educational mission, but with your research objectives. So Notre Dame, if you look at the U.S. News and World Report rankings, they've been in the top 20 for as long as I can remember. And that's been a big thing with how the undergraduate community works. In the last 15 years or so after Father Jenkins became the university president, there was a shift in we want to go after more federal research funds. Notre Dame's almost had a 3x increase in federal research funds over the last 12 years, from about 100 million to almost 275 million this past year. So that's been a huge part of it. And the issue is Notre Dame's still kind of been around, anywhere between 17 to 20 in those rankings. So Notre Dame's had like this international branding already. Whereas with USF, what this demonstrates is a growth in both our undergraduate mission as well as our research. So this is a demonstration that we are coming up in the overall rankings. Notre Dame was founded in 1842, USF 1956. So it's a much different in terms of what we're trying to show as a mission of the university. Now, the big thing is now we're demonstrating, now you can get into the AAU, which is basically a large lobbying. It's about 71 institutions that lobby the federal government to indicate, based on what our researchers and faculty and grad students are producing, this is where we think that the direction of research funding from the federal government should be. And so now USF being a part of that and Notre Dame being a part of that, we now have a seat at that table where I missed a lot of it. I'm sure you talked a lot about the Big Ten really focuses on AAU membership. One of the reasons why the Big Ten, that matters so much to them, is because part of the mission of the athletics is to also facilitate these large research collaborations. And that's why it matters so much to them. So with Notre Dame and USF now being parts of the AAU, what USF is like, hey, look, we're now on the national stage. And with Notre Dame, one of the reasons why it's kind of not as much of a big deal is because a lot of the people who would be talking about it, like your friend from the golf editor, came up through the undergrad where there was already this large national reputation.
For those of you just listening at home and not watching, we've got Dr. Matt in the house. Could you introduce yourself and kind of tell everybody that maybe hasn't heard you on before? I know you've been on a few times, but tell them a little bit about yourself so they understand.
Okay, so sure, not a problem, Seth. Thanks for having me, Anthony. Thanks for having me as well. Short version: I grew up in Maryland. Actually, my dad went to Notre Dame, and my act of rebellion was, I'm not applying to college. I'm not going to Notre Dame. I'm going to enlist in the Navy. And it was 6 years. I was a nuclear reactor operator on fast attack submarines. And after I got out of the Navy, I was like, I'm going to do my 6 years. I'm going to go to school. And then I get out and I'm like, wait a minute, where am I going to go to school? What do I do? Take my GI Bill. And so I started asking around to a lot of my Navy friends, like, if you could do it all over again, where would you go to school? And so many of them said, go to USF. Oh, hey, Mike, how's it going? We fellow vet too. So many of them just said, hey, look, in terms of accepting your smart transcript credits, in terms of they're actually supporting veterans, USF, they really have their act together. So many universities don't have the infrastructure, or in some cases, to be frank, don't care. And so I say, well, I got to go visit USF. And I visit, and they're like, hey, well, you should come to this football game. This really good football team. And my first football game at USF was the West Virginia game. And I like to tell a story. Like the next week, I went out to visit my other choice, which was Texas Tech. And I went to Lubbock, and I was like, nope, I'm going to USF. This is a no-brainer. So I go to USF. I get my bachelor's, master's, and PhD in computer science and engineering. One thing about the AAU is that this year the rules changed that membership in national academies among faculty and graduates became a factor in their choices. USF is the home of the National Academy of Inventors. I believe it's the 9th highest public institution for granting patents in the world. So having that access is a valuable resource. When I got my patent, that's where it's because I had the opportunity to work with people through their patent office. It's a valuable resource, as well as everything going on with the medical school. After I got my PhD for 4 years, I was a professor at the University of Mississippi. And now I have moved up to Notre Dame. I've been here now 4.5 years.
So you were a double winner last week.
Yes, big day for my resume.
So you kind of touched on a little bit, but what has USF done to put themselves in this position to kind of get this invite and join the AAU?
Right. So there are several different indicators that are used to get into the AAU. So for the first one, you have competitively funded federal research support. So that's going through the National Science Foundation, the USDA, going through the NIH. Next part, faculty awards, fellowships, and memberships. This is something that I kind of alluded to it. USF is really doubled down on. So going out, demonstrating you can get those federal funds. Citations and books. So this is a very academic in the weeds thing. So when you publish a paper, when somebody says, hey, I need to cite that in order to justify my research, USF has had a huge growth in that as well. Large increase in federal research funds. And then the next part, you're going to doctoral education, postdoctoral appointees. So with doctoral education, kind of what I went through. So I was funded. I did my research in low power computer chip design, and you get funds from the National Science Foundation. You get funds through Intel. You can get funds through Cadence Design Systems, which funds a big part of my research. And how you use that to be able to get graduate students through your program. Can you convince the National Science Foundation to fund you over a certain amount of time? And when you're doing that, you're paying PhD students to do research for you. So USF has grown a lot in that. One thing that I kind of laughed at when I was talking to some of my Notre Dame colleagues in the past when AAU was declined, one thing they said was the ratio of STEM to non-STEM faculty. And the reason I kind of laughed at that is like, well, there's a right way to do that, which is to hire more STEM faculty. The wrong way to do that is to try to cut your college of education. That's the wrong way to do that. Yeah. So postdoctoral appointees, I'm a little less familiar with that because I didn't do a postdoc, but basically once you get your PhD, you can go work at a university and work there for a couple years it's kind of like an advanced internship for a PhD. You can either go work at a university or at a company, and bringing in those kind of funds to help postdocs is something that's considered by the AAU. So Collin, do you have a question?
Real smooth transition there, Matt. You got to do more broadcasting, buddy. I just dropped that in the chat. You weren't supposed to actually tell everybody. That was in our private chat.
In fairness, you did raise your hand for the professor.
I did.
So you did do that.
It's a very fair point. Hold on.
I swear, I thought you were doing some golf stuff. Like, okay, that happened over there.
No, I am actually literally while we're sitting here, I'm updating US Open qualifying. Congrats to Carlos Ortiz on the Live Tour. Morrison, I have you sort of touched on this with the college of education and that complete 100% debacle, which probably is a real black mark on the University of OS. Academically, I think probably the two biggest black marks on the school are the damn logo, just snafu, which is putting it nicely, and what they did to college of education. This is a sports podcast. This is not meant to be political, but everything is politics in some extent, especially at a public institution. Only one school that I'm aware of has been kicked out of the AAU, and that was Nebraska, for that same reason about STEM research as opposed to non. And they had research dollars, but it was like in agriculture, and it was like in other things that weren't as relevant, and so they were removed. There are certainly things happening in Florida education right now that are, suffice it to say, controversial. Things like tenure protection matter to organizations like the AAU. What do you, I'm not saying USF's going to get kicked out or anything like that, but like, what will USF have to do to come into line and balance that, the most recent legislation that's passed in the state of Florida with, the principles and ideals of the AAU?
So I will lead off by saying that since I'm not I'm not an AAU insider, I don't want to speculate too much. I don't want to misspeak about the state of politics or how that ties in. My first instinct is to say the fact that they brought in two Florida universities, one public USF and one private Miami, speaks to the fact that there is some confidence in the AAU in the long-term viability of the institutions. There's only 71 members, which means they don't take admission lightly. So that tells me that they believe that USF and Miami are on the right trajectory. They're bringing in the right research dollars. They're hiring the correct people. And that as of right now, it's not so much of an issue that it would possibly cause the AAU membership to be withdrawn. In order to do that, there has to be a majority vote. There have been 4 universities that have left willingly, but they knew a majority vote was coming, or at least it's highly alluded to. The only university that's actually been voted out was Nebraska-Lincoln. It would be wildly embarrassing if you bring in USF and Miami and then 4 years later have to vote them out because of things that happened that were completely out of their control.
And Florida's as well. So you have 3 from the state of Florida.
Oh yes, if it was in UF, exactly. So if you had to vote three schools out from the same state that also are bringing in competitive research funds, I think that's an issue. I think if you and I'll try to be, I'm going to be as vague as possible here. If you were a state that had very serious problems trying to retain tenure track faculty because of politics, that would make it harder for you to attract, get membership into the AAU. It also doesn't actually matter to those institutions. We kind of alluded to the Big East. I think they're more focused on undergraduate research. Their membership as private universities. I think AAU membership isn't quite a goal. I will say that as of right now, I wouldn't be worried too much, but it's something to keep an eye on in the event that suddenly something horrific happens. The unknown unknowns. It's kind of like, well, how is USF positioning themselves in terms of conference membership as the results of the on-campus stadium, the IPF, and the AAU? It's positioning yourself for unknown unknowns. There's all kinds of things that could happen with the Big 12 and the ACC. Something happens nobody anticipates. We're now looking like a university that has its act together more than we did even 4 or 5 years ago. So to wrap up my very long professorial answer to your question, Collin, I think right now we are okay. I don't see a run on people leaving the university. In fact, the fact that they're getting AAU membership means they're actually attracting professors to the school. But it's something to keep an eye on. But I'm confident that President Law and people like Michael Kelly have their finger on the pulse and can lobby to the state and to the federal government. It's one of the benefits of being an AAU member. We now have a more opportunity to be able to make our voice heard in that and explain that some kind of laws could have very negative consequences.
Is getting those kind of new great professors thing, is that going to be maybe like exponential now that the AAU designation is there, or is that something that doesn't really appeal to faculty? Is that like a big deal on that side of the?
It does because of better access to research funds, because there are research funds that are primarily available to AAU members. And so if you're a faculty member, and when you're a faculty member and you're building a tenure case, you have to demonstrate 3 things. They break it down by research, teaching, and service activities. And research, as it depends on the institution, you say, all right, based on our status as an institution, we expect you to be able to raise a certain amount of dollars, graduate a certain number of students. And with AAU membership, that expectation may be a little higher, but on the other hand, you have more access to funds. So it becomes you can target certain grants. They're also in a tiebreak. So the NSF career proposal is a perfect example of what I'm about to describe. The NSF career proposal is a 5-year grant that junior tenure track faculty can go for to demonstrate their excellence and potential as a long-term researcher. When the NSF is evaluating who's going to get that year, you can go for it 3 times, right? And if there's somebody on a 3rd year from an AAU institution and it's a tie break, they're going to go with the person from the AAU institution because they know that they need it to get tenure. Whereas other institutions, they like, okay, well, we can come up with other ways. We see their potential, but it's that kind of politics that I think it absolutely makes USF more attractive to faculty than before.
So it can be a bit of an accelerator.
Yes,
basically.
It's the primary reason why USF wanted to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So and this is kind of for both Matt and Collin here, because it seems like the last few years, especially since Michael Kelly got here and Real Law became the president, there's big old alignment happening throughout the entire university, the system and Tampa campus and across athletics, everywhere else. Is this the most alignment you've seen since you've been in and around the USF, and is in and around USF as a whole? And is this something that you actually see as, we're used to a lot of, I don't want to say disappointment, but so things seem great.
Say it with your whole chest, Anthony. Say it with your whole chest. You're a USF grad. Disappointment is in your DNA. You can say it. It's allowed.
So is this one of those things where you can go ahead and say everything else that's going on as a fan of the university and athletics, you're seeing the alignment, and then this is kind of like another feather in the cap of where this university is going? Is that alignment there? And do you think that this is really the turning point to, being more serious in all aspects, not serious necessarily, but being more successful in all aspects?
All right. So from my perspective, so I started in 2008. And from my point of view, it's been it's the most alignment I've seen. I think that, and in terms of from people I talk to who are there, they appear to be the happiest they've been since I've been around there. That's a good thing when you feel supported by the administration, when you actually feel that there's a plan. I remember Alex Golish was hired. He's like, "Oh yeah, they showed me the university plan." I'm like, "There's a plan. We have a plan. Yay!"
Baby steps.
Baby steps. We have a plan. It's a good sign. I think as everybody talks about realignment and can we get into bigger conferences and more money and all this stuff, I'm reminded of how Leroy Selman used to talk to other conferences. He didn't act all thirsty. He didn't tell everybody, "Oh, hey, we really want to be in their conference." He just said, "Hey, look, we're building. This is what we're doing. This is our vision. And if something comes up and you want to talk to us, we have a story to tell." And these things with the AAU, with the on-campus stadium, with the IPF, these are things in a story to tell. And with the on-campus stadium and unity throughout the university, one thing that I think is going to happen, and this is something that's happened a lot at Notre Dame over the last 4 years, taking advantage of the on-campus stadium as a way to talk to benefactors for funding for academic programs. Something when you guys come up for the USF game in a million years or whenever it actually scheduled, you'll see that the Notre Dame Stadium is a lot different than it was in 2011. They have 3 buildings that surround the stadium. First of all, they got rid of all those terrible seats. They're all gone. Thank goodness. But the other thing is there's 3 buildings that they've built around the stadium. And one of them has this huge gym that's literally the length of the football field. It's 7 floors. And one of the floors that they use for alumni gatherings, they use it for recruitment for students. They use it to attract benefactors and faculty go and they meet them and talk to them about their projects and things that you need in order to be able to develop competitive research programs. Using that on-campus stadium and those football weekends and other events, concerts, whatever, as opportunities to bring the community together in the ways that USF frankly hasn't had, just because the football stadium's been so far away and a lot of other reasons that we've talked about. That's the bigger accelerator. You're in the AAU. We've demonstrated we're building research. We have an on-campus community. We have an on-campus stadium where we can bring people together and talk about how we want to grow an institution further. So it's really important. I think that the next steps are getting alignment with the university growth, things like the USF Foundation, USF Alumni Association, being able to show how it is we're going to tell our story and frankly rebuild our relationship with the Tampa and USF alumni communities.
I 200% agree, Matt. Every time we do this, we agree on everything. It's not great. It's not exactly Skip and Shannon. So the alignment's better than I've seen it in my entire time here, and I think that's for a couple of reasons. And this is not a dig. I swear to God, it's not. If somebody is the face of the university for 2 decades and the ground underneath changes so drastically, Tampa has changed so much, academia has changed so much, the mission of the university has changed so much. It's a public institution. It's run by the state government, so it is a political entity. The politics of the state have changed drastically. Everything has changed about USF in the last 20 some years. This goes double for the former president at UCF, who was there even longer than Genchef was at USF, and just watch things fritter and away around. It's a dynamic school. It needs dynamic and changing leadership, and I think they've gotten that. You got to give credit to this board, man. Like you just do. They haven't missed yet. And I say that, fully cognizant. I got a couple friends there, but like, they just haven't missed. And like, what did we all say? We want a stadium. Got a stadium. Got a plan. It's going to happen. Money's going to be there. They found a way to make it happen. We wanted to get more people involved in athletics at the front door of the university. Well, you got an indoor practice facility now. Now you got to win games, and that'll get handled. And I think if we don't win games, I think we're going to see, drastic wholesale changes in a lot of other places. But we're going to, the things are in place now. But the overriding mission of this was getting the AAU. And whether that was catering your incoming freshman classes to U.S. News and World Report criteria, which Matt and I think would both agree is maybe not the best thing in the interest of the institution in the long run. But they said, you know what, the greater good is to cater to that because it'll be better for the institution as a whole. And even if the exact standards that we're trying to adhere to aren't really, ideologically and performance-wise perfect, it'll be better for the school in the long run. It'll help build the university the way that it needs to be built, and it'll get the community invested. And I think they've done that. So like, on the whole, like I don't see how anybody can complain. What we always heard about USF was they don't have any money. Oh, they don't have any money. They don't have any money. We found a board that said, we're going to invest. We're going to spend. We're going to do what it takes to get people in. Now, they need to not just invest in athletics. They got to invest on the academic side as well. You can't do one without the other. You can't go reverse Louisville. It's just that ain't called fly. Nope. So you're going to have to find a way to invest. But and here's the other thing is that I warn about this all the time with my friends down here in I'm not in South Tampa right now, but in South Tampa, I discuss this all the time, which is UT's coming, y'all. UT's going to be a D1. So I full disclosure, I had heard that UT was already going to announce they're a member of the ASUN conference.
Wow.
Not football.
Ooh.
Not football, but they were going to be, UT baseball, UT women's volleyball, UT women's basketball too. I mean, women's basketball, I don't know if they've won a national championship. I know volleyball's won 3. I think baseball's won like 6 or 7, maybe even more.
Behemoth. Baseball's a behemoth.
They're huge. I mean, Tino Martinez they didn't let Tino Martinez play at USF, so he went to UT. How'd that work out?
Good club.
So,
jeez,
like I know, and here's the other thing. Like, as an aside, USF totally had the opportunity to buy UT's downtown campus in the past. Like, they were like, here, we're very poor right now, and you guys can fulfill the mission of the university. We could have bought Kennedy downtown on the river in the middle of downtown Tampa.
The beautiful buildings,
the gorgeous buildings. We could have had it all, and they didn't buy them. They never bought the university mall, and they never bought UT's campus. So, like, UT's coming, and a lot of people on that side of the world are going to invest in UT, and a lot of the money in our region is, South Kennedy, and USF has to find a way to be competitive. And get everyone in the region, not just in North Tampa. They got to get everybody to donate and be a part of the program. I think this is a huge step forward in that direction. The other stuff that I think would really be helpful is kind of out of their control. I think some kind of public transit that would run, that would make it easier to get from, downtown South Tampa to campus. Anything like would just make. It would feel like the region was a little bit more connected. It doesn't matter where you are in Manhattan. You can be a St. John's fan because, you can get there from wherever. That's a little bit more difficult with USF. And so just, but I think they've controlled everything that they can control. And this is, look, made a lot of mistakes in the past, but I think they're correcting them, and they're correcting them much faster than I thought they would, honestly.
It's been nothing but good news pretty much the past couple of years, and we kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, and so far it's all been pretty positive. So
I always say this, like, I still think this is a growth stock and we're still at the floor, but the thing is this time they're building it on the right foundation. They're doing things the right way. They're making the correct choices. These are not people that are here. The interests are not people that are short-term trying to promote a resume so they can go somewhere else and get out. They're trying to build this thing the right way and make this a destination place and a destination university. And I think they've really made tremendous progress on that front. But, look, this is all gorgeous and wonderful and hoity-toity and pinkies up. We're in the AAU. That's awesome. Clink our champagne glasses in our ivory tower with Tulane and Rice. But, we got to win games, y'all. We just got ain't nobody give a damn what about AAU status if you're 2-10 in football. So don't do that.
When you got your first game against Western Kentucky, you play Alabama this year.
13-point dog at Western Kentucky.
So
directing sportsbook.
I feel like that's low. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems right.
That offense is really good, and you're wholesale changing this whole thing. And I trust Golish, and I like what the staff has put together. But game one,
13. No, we're a 13-point underdog.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We think might be low.
That offense is really good.
You think so? You think it should be 20? I wouldn't hate it if it was.
I think 14. I think under 2 touchdowns. You feel. They got a new coordinator. They got a new coordinator. Well, I think they might have 2 new coordinators at Western Kentucky. But
I actually didn't hear that part.
The quarterback.
Once Austin Reed came back, it was just okay, guy threw 4,000 yards last year, just casually.
They got
the worst defense, and again, I don't anticipate that to continue to happen. But generally, it takes a little bit of time outside of game one. You're not going to just flip the switch, but who knows?
That's one thing I was hoping to get more.
This year, that's a huge accomplishment.
That's one thing I was hoping to get down with Golish a little. He gave us a little bit on it, but is he just basically going USC where he's just gonna, hey, we know we're bad on defense, just try to take the ball away as much as possible. I don't care if you give up a bunch of explosive plays. If you can get, if we can just keep winning the turnover battle every game, then we have a chance to win if our offense is good. So I think that's the way he's going.
Here's the other, slightly off topic, totally off topic for what we were discussing. But if I'm Golish or if I'm MK or if I'm Will Weatherford, I would go to Golish and be like, all right, look, we're not going to judge you on 23. If whatever happens in the Alabama game, that's our fault. We scheduled it our bad. Sorry about that. And in 24, you got to show a little bit of improvement by 24, especially with the portal now. Things can change, but you can turn over a roster faster in college football than you ever could before. But you need to be good in 25. That needs to be the standard because you got to sell season tickets for the new crib in 2026. So do whatever you have to do the next 2 seasons, turn the roster how you need, change whatever you want. But in 2025, you have to be competitive. It's the only way this works. You don't have to win 12 games, but you have to be competitive, bowl eligible, good at football by 2025, or reasonable at football for sure.
Off-season hot take: USF covers against Alabama.
What's the number?
Ooh,
whatever it is, I think they cover
40.
Because I think it's going to be huge, and I think Saban's not going to want to show Tennessee anything about how he's going
Saban doesn't cover in. Saban does not cover in those huge spread games.
He doesn't want to show Tennessee how he's going to play the offense.
Right. Yeah, so, he does not cover. He tends.
I don't think he'd use it as a lab. I think he'd just say, we can go out and grind out a win. We don't need to show anything. So,
yeah, that's a Florida recruiting trip for them, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
and we're going to go up there twice.
He does get to look at the Tennessee offense, so that'll help.
I will be at one of those because I would love to go to Tuscaloosa. So I did want to. You mentioned there's 71 AAU universities or schools. I saw a different number, but I realized that's with USF and USA. There are 2 universities in Canada that are also part of it. So what I was just looking at was, if there's 2 that are 71, that would make 69 in the US.
Nice.
That's for you, Heathy Poop. And on that note,
I think next year we put out an AAU top 25 in football. I think USF would be comfortably in it at the back end. It'd be close. It'd be, maybe not. They'd be close. They'd be receiving votes in the AAU top 25 in football.
I'm trying to see. Actually, you might be right here.
Damn it!
I peeked through it. I peeked through the list. There's some.
Illinois is going to be good. Utah's good. Kansas, Michigan.
Are we going to be better than Colorado?
Sorry, probably not.
I couldn't
Probably not.
resist. No. I'm just trolling.
USF will throttle Harvard.
Oregon's going to be good.
Bring it on Crimson.
Yeah.
Bring it on Crimson. Get you and Yale. Does Emory have football? No, Georgia Tech.
No.
Oh, Ohio State's in there. Okay.
They're close.
Oof. Stanford.
Yeah, Georgia Tech's an interesting. That's
I did like.
Penn
I think it was
State,
Matt.
Smoke us.
I think Matt Brown said it's like, yes, USF and ASU. They're common peer institutions, Columbia and Stanford. It's like,
That's right, baby.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because there's 3 UC schools, right? 3 or 4, or Irvine, Riverside, UCLA,
Berkeley,
Caltech, UC Santa Barbara,
Santa Barbara, and San Diego. That's 6.
Davis, Berkeley, Irvine, LA,
San
Riverside,
Diego's
San Diego,
numbers.
Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz.
8 of them. Wow, that's unbelievable. Yeah, and none of the state schools, only the UC schools. Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm look, I've been very optimistic about USF for the last 5 years, despite the fact that I have zero evidence to show that I think they're actually doing the right thing because we're not winning anything. And but I'm still optimistic. I think we hired people who didn't take shortcuts, and I think someday that will pay off. And if it doesn't, it's okay. I'm going to live on the 15th floor now. I can just jump. You know what I mean? It'll be fine.
You can go to Lightning games. Lightning will never disappoint you.
Come on, baby.
The only
We're
thing
not
I
in
will
sour
say,
cap jail with no draft picks.
I hear the NBA's looking for expansion candidates, Colin.
please.
They are. Well, the WNBA is looking sooner and
Put
faster.
Put a double in there.
And the WNBA coming to Tampa makes so much flippant sense. Like it's insane. They could, and by the way, that league, when they can add 4 teams tomorrow and not have one iota of drop.
Well, yeah, they're cutting draft picks.
Yeah,
right?
they're cutting first-round draft
Yeah.
picks.
The first overall pick in the 2021 draft can't get on the court. She got cut. Like, because she never got to play because there's no way to develop players. Like, it's insane. So, yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, but my so to hit on something that Colin said about building on a good foundation and being doing things smarter rather than faster. I know we like to joke around about people wanting the renderings and everything. It's a good thing that we haven't seen those yet, and it's kind of going to what I teach my students about engineering and chip design. You don't want it fast, you want it cheap, you want it well done. Pick 2. Right.
Yep.
If you want the renderings faster, you're either going to need to increase the cost or you're going to degrade the quality. And everything else with the way that USF's going, it's a good thing that we're not trying to go all out to get into the ACC, tomorrow, because that's not the right way to go about things. It's better that we aim for 5, 6, 7, even longer years out. Michael Kelly said it somewhere. He's just, hey, let's take this opportunity. Let's build some good teams. Let's win on the field. Let's use this as a community builder. And then when the time is right, the time is right. And I think that to Anthony's question, I just think that we're doing things smart, and which is nice. I have not always been a person. You guys know my opinion on the Bulls logo snafu very, but I think
you went very far in helping get that killed, sir. Just so
me and Charlie Strong probably deserve like names in like the Ring of Honor for that. That like everybody can critique Charlie Strong all they want. He practically threw his body in front of that. But yeah, I just think that
incredible.
It's we're doing things right. Be patient, and things will come around. And if we don't get into the Big 12 or the ACC, but we build a really good thing where we are, that's also good. I think that we should focus right. The university, we've got the right leadership. They're doing things the right way, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, and like Colin said earlier, I think the ideal thing would to be peaking as this new stadium opens. So you have a very good team in conjunction with a lot of excitement around a new facility. And I think that would propel you further in any realignment discussion than just kind of renderings and things like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of renderings, I was one of those that got invited to those focus groups that they were doing with the architect and the builder. And I know a bunch of people were talking about it and on Facebook, and I knew a couple of the people that were in my group already. What really impressed, and by the way, Michael Kelly was there. The new president of the USF Foundation, or the development director of the university, whose name just escapes me right now, he was there. Bill McCausland from the Alumni Association was there. So they had a lot of people who they brought in. And what impressed me was two things. One, not only that they did it, and that they brought in a very diverse group, and they did multiple sessions with a lot of different people, because I know a lot of different people got brought into one. But the other thing was they asked the right questions, which were open-ended. It's sometimes in a thing like that, like I feel like when we did the logo, they did focus groups like this as well, I'm sure. It was much more like, don't you love this? Isn't this great? Won't you think that this is how we should, ambition over tradition is what we should really brand our university as? And it's almost like push polling, whereas this was very open. And what do you guys want to see? And, I think all of us to a person said game day atmosphere is the number one most important thing. We can work around the rest. We can work around shade. Yeah, we're going to have some luxuries because our fan base is, used to the accoutrement of Ray J. And yeah, our donors need some leather chairbacks, and they're going to need some shade and, some things like that. But like the students can sit on spiked metal benches. That's fine, because they should be standing up at football games anyway. And the students even agreed with that were in my session. Even they were like, yeah, we don't need any of that stuff. And I was super duper impressed. And they're working with HOK Populous. I think they dropped the HOK a while ago, but it's Populous, who built like literally every stadium you love. They built all of them, from Camden Yards all the way forward, Pac Bell, or AT&T Park now. Everything you've ever loved, a stadium you've gone, it's really freaking awesome. They built it. And so they're working with the right people too. And to get that group in here, I think they're going to do it right. But, look at me, the optimist, the raging optimist about the University of South Florida. Go figure.
Yeah, that's the shocking part right now. That leads me to believe that good things are about to happen, and we were seeing it. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the way this process works, and like being across, nearby campus. Curious how this whole thing, from that first shuttle in the ground to what ends up being. Interested to how this plays out.
And actually, DA Mike from PA, 215 forever. Somebody did ask about a live bull and a statue of bull in my group. And I think it's something that they're considering. A live bull just has massive implications. I know they can do it at Colorado with like livestock, but there are other things that you just got to build around there. And
Bevo,
I don't,
baby.
And I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. And especially like in an environment now where like we're a little nicer to animals than we used to be. Like the Sooner Schooner and Mike the Tiger being on the cage at the sidelines at LSU gets like protested a lot. Like maybe we should just like leave the live animals out of it. But we'll see.
I may trade lives with Mike right now. He's got a pretty good in that enclosure. But all right, I think it's pretty good stuff. Besides the people beating on it all the time, it's probably not too fun. But I think we may get you guys back on maybe when more stadium stuff comes out to really get in depth on it, because we've gone pretty long already here. But there's a lot more of the stadium, I think, even without the stuff, just the minimal stuff that's been put out that's really interesting to talk about. But maybe we'll do that another time. So, Vito, you got anything else? I think we'll probably push the recruiting talk to we get Sean and Stieg back on, and they can get a little more in depth on it. And,
we'll chat more baseball.
Guys pop.
Yeah, we'll chat more baseball, more basketball with new coach Abdur Rahim, what he's been doing. We'll do that the next time we get Nate back as well. Plugging for him, if you haven't, go get your tickets to go see Sound of Music over at Carrollwood Players, where Nate got a really good review, and so did his daughter Olivia. My wife and I are going on the 23rd, Friday the 23rd. So let's try to get as many people as we can to support Nate, because that's his debut. And he says he's loving it, but it's a exhausting first weekend. So we'll get him back here pretty shortly.
The 23rd is the Discord meetup date, right? So if you want to do a Discord meetup, it'd be the 23rd. So let's
do it. Friday the 23rd. That's the Friday of closing weekend. And we'll go support. Yeah.
And if you haven't checked out on the YouTube channel, on the podcast feed, if you haven't checked out our interview with Coach Golish from earlier or from last month, a couple weeks ago, he was awesome. Really good information. So check that out if you haven't already. And I'm not sure exactly what our schedule is going to be, but if anything big breaks like this AAU news, we'll try to get on it as quickly as possible.
Thank you again, Dr. Matt and Collin. And for Seth and Vito, this is the Bulluminati podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Vito. Good talking to you.
Likewise. Appreciate it, guys.